I caught the edge of my snowboard, and that was the last thing that I remember. I was in a coma, and even if I came out of the coma, there was a good chance that I probably wouldn't be able to walk, talk, or eat on my own ever again.
Have you been snowboarding since?
Yeah, yes, I have. Whatever success I'm doing, I've always had this voice in the back of my head that's saying, yeah, okay, that's great, Nick, but what you really need to be doing is telling your story from stage and helping trauma survivors to get through their trauma and then thrive with the rest of their lives.
Nick Prefontaine is a three-time best-selling author, acclaimed motivational speaker, and the CEO and founder of Common Goal. After surviving a devastating snowboarding accident as a teenager, an incident that left doctors uncertain if he'd ever walk, talk, or eat on his own again, Nick made a full recovery and ran out of the hospital in under 90 days. He went on to develop the STEP system, a framework that has helped countless people move through trauma and unlock their limitless potential. He's been featured in Brains Media, Sway, and Authority magazine, and was named a top motivational speaker by Yahoo Finance in 2022. Nick Prefontaine, can you take us back to the day of your snowboarding accident? What do you remember, or what were you later told about what happened?
Hi, Jessica. Yeah, the question and how you phrase it is perfect because I've actually I've been able to piece together what happened based on what I've been told partially and what I remember. So it's all mixed in. It's all a combination. So I can remember that it was that day was ski club with my friends, and I was at ski club with my friends, and we all got released a little bit early, which was always a big deal when you were in school, when you were in eighth grade. So we have brought our snowboard gear onto the bus to get ready, so we wouldn't miss a precious moment once we got to the mountain. And we got to the mountain, and everyone headed inside to get ready.
Now,
But
where in the world were you? What mountain is this?
Northeast Wachusett Mountain. Yeah, Wachusett Mountain, and I believe that's in Princeton, Massachusetts.
Okay,
Yep, yep.
great.
And then my friends and I were ready. We were the minority. Everyone else went inside to get ready, and we were like, "Are you guys nuts? You wasting time here." So we wanted to get as many runs in as we could. So we headed right for the chairlift, and on the chairlift ride up, we noticed that Jessica, that it was very icy because it had been raining earlier in the day, and where the chairlift where it went right over the terrain park. And for those of you that aren't ski or snowboard aficionados, that means they just had a bunch of jumps and like rails and things that you could do tricks on. So the chairlift went right over the terrain park, and I knew as soon as I saw it that I had to go off the biggest jump of the terrain park. There really wasn't even a moment of thinking like, maybe I should be careful today because it was raining earlier. There was there was no doubt in my mind. I was definitely doing that. I mean, I was already thinking about what we would do after I landed that huge trick. Maybe we could grab a burger and fries in the lodge, or we could head over to the other chairlift for some runs on those trails. So I was just happy to be there. So I got to the top, buckled into my snowboard, and charged towards that jump with all my speed. And then going out to the jump, I caught the edge of my snowboard, and that was the last thing that I remember. So, due to the severity of my injury, they wanted to bring a helicopter to the mountain to rush me to the hospital. And they couldn't because it was too windy, so they had to send in an ambulance. So, Jessica, there's always three things that I credit for being able to be here today and tell this story. The first one is the right paramedic. So out of the six paramedics, there was only one who could intubate right on the spot, and I needed that to be able to breathe. And lucky for me, he was one of the paramedics that showed up to the mountain that day. The second thing was I later learned that I didn't have a helmet on. The only protection that my head had was a pair of goggles. And for those of you that don't know what that is, ski and snowboarding, you wear goggles over your eyes to, protect against snow and rain and everything like that. So I'm sorry, I think you might, the way you're reacting, you might have a question.
Yeah, now why didn't you have a helmet on?
Well, that's a great question. I didn't wear a helmet all the time, but I usually wore it to ski club because it was a little bigger mountain than I was usually used to. But back at this time, helmets were just kind of coming on the scene. So this is back in 2003. So I would wear a helmet to like ski club usually, and then when I went up north, when I went to Vermont to bigger mountains, I of course would wear a helmet. I wouldn't wear it at a few smaller mountains. However, that day, for whatever reason, I had forgot it. I really didn't think anything of it. I just thought, nothing ever happened. I'd just be careful. I'd just be safe, and I'd be fine. So that's kind of why I didn't have a helmet on. So the goggles not only braced my initial impact, but as I continued to roll down the mountain and continued to hit my head, I learned that my goggles moved to cushion each blow. And they really I credit those for having played a part in saving my life. The third thing, once I got to the hospital, so I was out. I was in a coma, in the intensive care unit, unable to communicate with anyone. And each time the doctors would come into my room to share progress updates with my parents, and if you or anyone listening has any idea with this, if you've ever had a traumatic injury or an acute injury and had to go to the hospital, the doctors can't paint a rosy picture. So, especially early on, they were sharing not so good news, not so good news, not so good news with my parents. And my mom knew this. And she stopped them when the doctors started to share the prognosis, even though I was in a coma. And she said, no, no, not in front of him. Because she understood that even though I was in a coma, I was still taking in information. So she made the doctors step outside the room, and that's when they shared that I had been in a snowboarding accident and landed on my head. I was in a coma, and even if I came out of the coma, there was a good chance that I probably wouldn't be able to walk, talk, or eat on my own ever again. And to my parents' credit, they took the information, they thanked the doctors, and then this allowed me to treat it like any other situation because none of this got through to my mind, whether subconsciously or unconsciously. I still to this day confuse the two, but no matter, it just didn't get through to my mind. So it just allowed me to treat it like any other situation. This was no different than any other challenge that I had faced up to this point in my life. So I ended up being in a coma for 3 weeks. I really don't remember a month because it was a partially induced coma. They had to wait for the swelling to come down in my brain because they were worried that if I woke up and panicked, the swelling would increase and then I would have died. So it was a partially induced coma. And my memories start right at that point, about a month after my accident, my memories start. And I was transported to a rehab hospital in Boston. And that's where I began my journey. So I was originally transported to the third floor, and that was reserved for the most critical of cases. And uh, I mean, just to paint a picture to give you an idea, I would need 2 or 3 nurses to support me sitting up in bed my hospital bed for only 8 minutes at a time. And after that, I was sweating profusely like I had just ran a marathon. So like that's the level where I was. And I had to learn everything. My memories, I've been talking about this recently. My memories from that time, the third floor, um, it's like very vague. I like vaguely remember a few things from that, but my real memory started when I was transported to the second floor unit. And in my mind, that's where my journey started, because I would get up in the morning and I would need help. My occupational therapist would teach me how to shower again. I mean, if you can picture that, I had to learn everything. It was like I was a 14-year-old baby, for lack of a better term. And then I would have breakfast and start my morning therapy sessions. And I had double sessions of physical, occupational, and speech therapy. And I can remember early on in my recovery, after my morning therapy sessions, I was back in my room with my mom, who was my support, was part of my support team, which I'll get into that in a little bit. And I can remember looking over my situation, Jessica, being in a wheelchair, and I just couldn't figure it out. I remember turning to my mom and saying, "Am I ever going to be able to walk again?"
Mm.
She didn't hesitate. She said, "Of course you are. That's what we're doing here. So you can get everything back and we can go home." So this allowed me to keep moving forward, even though I had that moment of doubt. So this is the perfect time to introduce the step system. So
I want to
you
go
have a
back
question
for,
first?
yeah, I want to go back for a moment. Because you said the doctors didn't think that you were going to walk, talk, or eat on your own again. Wow. Okay. And then I want to get deeper onto that, but before that, your mom is amazing to know to step out of the room so that you couldn't get anything subconsciously into your brain about what they were telling her. I mean, when you said that, I thought, of course, I know that, but I wouldn't be thinking of that in that situation under those circumstances. I imagine she was devastated and completely beside herself. And to have that thought to wait, let me step out, that's amazing. And then going back to what the doctor said, so they went from saying that to now you're relearning, you're in the shower, they're helping you shower. So they didn't even think that you'd be able to do that. Or at what point were they amazed at what you were capable of doing because they didn't think you would get there?
You see, this is I appreciate the question. This is an important like distinction. So people will learn about my story and they'll say, "Oh, okay, you were told that you were never going to be able to walk, talk, or eat again, and then you ran out of the hospital. Like how did you do it?" That kind of thing. I was never told anything. So for me, it was just something that happened in my life. Oh, okay, something happened in my life, and I have to deal with it. I have to just deal with what's in front of me and like get better every day. And so to me, there was never that you're not going to be able energy. It was just the whole time my parents had me focused on what my next steps were. Uh, if that makes sense.
Definitely, definitely. Wow. Our minds are so incredible. Like, so that boundary or like that I don't know what you call it, but it was like a hurdle. Like you didn't even see it there. You didn't know it existed, so it didn't matter,
That's
basically.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. To me, because my parents shielded me and protected me from having, even though I was in a coma, but having any of that negative energy get in to me, whether unconsciously or subconsciously, I was just able to, okay, this happened, and I gotta treat it like any other situation. So, literally and figuratively, get up every day and just keep getting better every day, keep doing what's in front of you. So It was right around this point, though, Jessica, that I started to unknowingly use a system. And that's what I teach to this day, both in my one-on-one work with clients and keynote speeches, and my step video program is a step system. So STEP is an acronym. It stands for support. So make sure that you have the support of your family and friends right from the beginning. And this is going to have you falling back on relationships that you built prior to your setback. And then T is trust. So trust that once you take your first step, your next step is always going to be available to you. And this also starts with trusting that voice that you hear inside of yourself. And we all have it, but the majority of us discount it and push it down or push it away. Like, oh, I would never be able to do that. That's no one, why would I? That's so far. Why would that even be a thing? Like, a lot of people discount that voice. So it was right around this time in my hospital room. I was still in a wheelchair, and I can remember my parents meeting with my team of doctors and therapists, and they were saying, all right, so what do we need to do to make sure Nick makes a full recovery? This is even before I could talk. So I heard in the back of my head, you're going to run out of the hospital. And I was able to communicate that to the rest of our team. So that became our common goal that we were working towards every week. And that's where my company name comes from, Common Goal. And really a lot of the work that I'm doing today. So that's where that comes from.
So
And
the words full recovery, that meant to you that you'd be able to run.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was always okay. Yeah, this happened. You gotta make a full recovery. But I was like, I heard in my head, you're gonna run out. So that running out, and I trusted that voice, and then I was able to, and I'll share a little bit later because I think we have enough time. I'll share how that voice came up later in my life and really led me to what I'm doing today, and brought me to this point in my life. So E, back to the acronym, is energy. So maintaining your energy allows your body's natural ability to be able to heal itself. And medication has the potential to get in the way of that. So, I mean, obviously, Jessica, within reason here, that first night in the hospital after my accident cost $250,000. So, if it wasn't for modern medicine, I wouldn't be here today. However, there is a use, time, and place for everything. So, a month after my accident, when I came out of the ICU, was the time that we needed to allow the body to heal itself. And I can remember it was I was at the rehab hospital. I was down, I had progressed, I was down on the second floor. And this was still within a week, maybe, of being cleared to walk. And I got up in the middle of the night, and I would always have someone stay with me. So whether it was my dad or an uncle or my grandfather, I would always have someone stay with me at night, and my mom and her parents would be with me during the day. And I got up to go. I had to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and because I wasn't able to project my voice, I leaned over my bed, and my grandfather, I call him Bub. So I said, Bub, Bub, and he didn't hear me. He couldn't hear me. So I was able to lower the bar on my bed and make it to the bathroom. Nothing ever happened. I was fine, and then I was able to get back. However, the hospital found out the next day, and they freaked out.
Wait,
Like, oh no,
you walked?
yeah, I could walk. I wasn't cleared yet. So
Oh.
I needed someone's supervision
Mhm.
to like help me to the bathroom, for instance. So they found out the next day, and they freaked out. They were like, we can't have this, and liability, we're gonna give him this many cc's of this medication, that many cc's of this other medication, and that should calm him down so he's able to sleep through the night. And my mom heard this, and she was like, no, you're not. Just ask him not to do that. So they asked me not to do that, and it didn't happen again. But if I didn't have an advocate there for me, they would. And listen, doctors and nurses, I, I'm not trying to displace anyone by saying this, but they would have just gave me medication to make their jobs easier. So it was
Right. They
important. It was
do as
important.
Yeah, they do what they're trained to do in
Yeah.
that circumstance. And sometimes our bodies and our minds know better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Then P is persistence. So once you take your first step, keep getting up every day and taking your next step, no matter how small. And by continuing to move forward every day, you are building an unstoppable momentum. So if you fast forward less than 60 days later, I realized my goal of running out of the hospital. And it wasn't like my work was done. I had to continue to go to outpatient therapy along with being tutored all summer long, 5 days a week in order to. So I had to go to outpatient therapy for another 6 months, physical, occupational, and speech therapy. Then I had to be tutored all summer long, 5 days a week in order to continue on to high school with the rest of my classmates. So I was able to walk, if you will, at my eighth grade graduation. How everyone was like, "Yeah, summer," but I still had a lot of work to do. So that year, 2003, I didn't have a summer. It continued. Schooling continued for me. So then in high school, I actually got my start in real estate when I was in high school, and that was door knocking. It's a little surreal to me because only 18 months later, after finishing my rehab, I got my from my recovering from my snowboarding accident. I got my start in real estate, and that was door knocking, notice to default doors. So homeowners that have fallen behind in their payments and have received a notice of default letter from the bank. So I did that after getting my driver's license throughout the rest of high school. Then in I got my real estate license right after high school and was helping buyers and sellers. And then my dad came to me in 2014, and I was still a realtor at the time. End of 2014, he asked me if I could help him market all the properties that he was getting non-conventionally. So I'll just give your listeners like a 10,000 foot view. So he was buying homes non-conventionally without signing personally, using his credit, using big down payments or investor down payments. And some of the ways that he was buying is a lease purchase, basically a delayed cash sale. Then another way he would actually close on the home subject to the existing loan. And the third way, if they didn't have any debt on the property, he would close on the home and structure principal only payments with the seller. So those are just a few, just to keep it 10,000 foot view, keep it simple. However, he was buying, he needed to find a rent to own buyer to buy them. So that's kind of where I came into the picture. And he approached me at the end of 2014, and I started helping him with putting it on the rent to own market, different from listing it as a realtor. At the time when I first started working with him, I was only making maybe 10% of my income was with him as an investor. Then over the course of 13 or 14 months, my income shifted where I was making up to 90% of my income with him as an investor. So in January of 2016, it didn't even make sense for me to keep my real estate license anymore. So I let that go. And all throughout my life, Jessica, ever since I graduated from high school, I've always had this voice in the back of my head that's always, no matter what I'm doing, whatever success I'm doing, whether it's as a real estate agent helping buyers and sellers, as an investor helping rent home buyers get into houses, I've always had this voice in the back of my head that's saying, yeah, okay, that's great, Nick. But what you really need to be doing is telling your story from stage and helping trauma survivors to get through their trauma and then thrive with the rest of their lives. So that voice has always been here. And in 2016, um, our company, Smart Real Estate Coach, started holding events. So we hold events once or twice a year. Well, now it's several times a year, but we hold events, and I've always at those have had my opportunity to tell my story, much like I'm doing today, but in a truncated version, a smaller version. I've always had the opportunity to tell my story, and maybe it's been 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and that's been about the extent of it. So I always thought like that I was scratching that itch of, oh, okay, I'm doing it. I'm listening to that voice. I'm telling my story from stage. Not really though. Um, so it was someone that saw me at one of our events, our flagship event, if you will, in September of 2019, and she approached me. My voice was still pretty strained at this point, and I haven't talked about that, but so she approached me after hearing me talk, and that time 2019 was the longest that I had told my story on stage, and that was maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and I was like, "Ooh, that's a really big deal." I had to get ready for it. I was nervous, like
That's a
nerves,
long time to talk on stage.
everything. So right, so I was like, I felt great about it. However, this woman approached me and gave me her card, said, "I'm not trying to steal you from your dad. However, if you're ever looking to fine tune your message and bring it to another level so that you're able to have maximum impact and help the most amount of people, I can introduce you to a few coaches and mentors that have helped me along the way." So I already hinted at this. I was dealing with a voice issue still at the time. So my voice was still pretty strained. I wasn't ready. And the reason why I wasn't ready and why my voice was strained, in 2012, I developed a voice issue. I developed this from um, screaming my scripts, the real estate scripts, before I got on the phone to prospect for new business. And I so foolishly, I did that for 6 or 7 months before I realized there was a problem. And then I finally did, and I started looking everywhere for answers. Went to my general physician. He examined me, gave me a full physical. Was like, "Oh yeah, you're fine. Nothing's wrong. All your levels are fine." So after, long story short, for the sake of time, I went to all these different kinds of doctors and specialists, and no one could tell me what the answer was. However, I wound up in a voice specialist office in August of 2013. And that's when I started receiving Botox injections into my vocal folds, along with their higher level speech pathologists, like higher than just regular run of the mill speech therapy, like higher level. So I started receiving those in conjunction with the Botox, and over the course of, I received these treatments for 7 years, Botox treatments. I no longer have to get them anymore, along with the higher level voice therapy to kind of train my throat muscles back to how they were before I developed any issues. And at this point where the woman approached me in 2019, I was still in the final throes of that voice issue, so I wasn't ready yet. However, if you kind of move a few months past that, I did receive my last Botox injection in February of 2020. I remember it, February 13th of 2020. And that was the last one that I had to get. And then
Now,
throughout the rest of
what did it do? I'm curious. So it relaxed those muscles, or how
Yeah,
did it work?
exactly. So there was like a lot of tension. It was like almost like it sounded like there was like hard to get the words out. That's how my voice sounded all the time. So I relaxed the throat muscles, and then as it was wearing off, after 2 or 3 weeks, typically, I would work with their higher level speech therapist to train my voice again. And I learned so much about the throat and the voice, and how like intricate and really like detailed everything is. It really amazing. So that was the last one that I had to get. So I received Botox injections for 7 years. I really dealt with the issue for, um, gosh, I really dealt with it for like 8 years because I first developed it in 2012. However, I still had her card, the woman who approached me after hearing me in 2019. So I finally reached out to her because the voice in my head just kept getting louder and louder and louder, that you have to be telling your story from stage and helping trauma survivors through their trauma and thrive with the rest of their lives. So I finally reached out to her. She introduced me to her mentor, who became my mentor, Trisha Brooke. I had an initial conversation with Trisha, and from that first phone call with Trisha, there has been no voice in the back of my head. And what that's evidence to me of is that I'm doing exactly what I was put on this earth to do. So I shared my experience and what I was looking to do with Trisha and my goals and everything. And I said, "Do you think that's possible?" And she said, "Absolutely." And I said, "All right, great. What do you think I should do?" She said, "The speaker salon, which is it's 25,000, and you commute to New York City for 6 weeks in a row. And you get to work with me and up to 10 or 15 other speakers on stage at the Triad Theater for 5 weeks. And then on the 6th week, you perform your 10 to 15 minute talk to TEDx organizers, like people who book TED speakers, um, event organizers and event planners, podcast hosts, like media, all these kinds of people. So you get to perform it for them. And I I just, in my soul, I had to say yes, Jessica. I had to do this. So I said yes. That was 25,000. And then halfway through working with her, halfway through the speaker salon, she pitched the idea of what it would look like to work with her one-on-one. And she said she specializes in um, helping speakers to build out their speaker platform. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even know what a speaker platform was, Jessica. I had no idea. However, I knew I needed more of her. I wanted more of her and her brain and everything. And she said, "That's 75,000." I
How
said,
old were you at this time?
this was back in 2021. Uh, so I was 4 years ago. So 32.
Okay.
32. So I said, "I don't have that kind of money just under my mattress, like in a bank account. So you got to give me a week, and I'll figure it out. I'll find the money. I'll get the money. So just give me a week." And I went and applied for financing, and 6 days later, I sent her the money. I was approved, and 6 days later, I sent her the money. And really, the whole reason why I go through in depth of that, Jessica, is because prior to Trisha, I shared the longest I had talked is maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes max, and that was a big deal for me. Now I share my keynote, which is 50 and 60 minutes, to brain injury associations all over the country, and also other organizations that support individuals that are going through trauma. So I speak to those organizations, and really, 50 or 60 minutes. If you would have told me 5 years ago that I'd be doing 50 and 60-minute keynotes, I would have told you that you were nuts. So Trisha was the one who helped me launch Common Goal, and she pulled the step system out of me. Now, what I mean by that is the step system was all in my mind at the time. So it was just, it's how I was raised and like how I deal with things and obstacles and how I accomplish goals and everything like that. And it was just in my head. So she asked me, all right, you have this when we started working together on our first call. She said, all right, so you have this great story. You got in your snowboarding accident, you were in a coma for 3 weeks, and then you ran out of the hospital. How'd you do it? I said, I don't know. I just kept getting up every day and did the best I could. And I did it. And she goes, no, not good enough. And she kept asking me, to the point where I was very frustrated. I was like, I don't know. Like, stop asking me. I think I only had a limited number of calls there, and I think I might have ended that one early because I was so annoyed and frustrated. However, I'm so happy, Jessica, that I went through that process with her because she helped pull the step system out of me. So now the step system is 90, 80 or 90% of what I'm doing. So it's um it's really what I get to teach in my keynotes, and really in my keynotes, because there's so much time, I get to really tell a lot of fun, funny stories from the hospital, and I get to actually spend time and work with people and teach the step system. Also with the step video series, and I just started doing one-on-one coaching where I work with people to help them implement it one-on-one. So yeah, it's all that didn't exist before Trisha. So that's what she meant by working with speakers to help them build out their speaker platform.
That's incredible. How can someone who's listening who might be going through their own crisis apply something from the step system today?
So I think it really depends on um it totally depends on what they're dealing with. But if I could give anyone out there advice for what they're dealing with, there are a lot of people who are stuck, and especially after an accident, after an injury, they just don't know what to do. Um, the number one thing that I can say, it sounds simple, but the number one thing that I can say is just deal with what's in front of you. So there might be all these great big goals to like make a full recovery and be like you were exactly before your injury. However, just right now, just deal with what's in front of you. Just do what you can control. Just win the day. That's it. That's all you have to worry about.
Absolutely incredible. Nick, I have two closing questions for you, but before I ask them, where can the listeners go to learn more about the STEP program, maybe see some of the keynotes that you've given?
Sure. Yeah, they can go. So I also, in my story, it's just a part of my story. The real estate portion of it and how we buy and sell creatively. And then if anyone's interested in learning more about that, they can go to our website, smartrealestatecoach.com. And if you scroll down, Jessica, you can get registered for the free masterclass that's going to teach you all about how we buy and sell on terms, as we like to call it. And then by the end, if it's not a great fit for everyone, but if it's for you, by the end, you'll be able to take your next step and to take action. Now, also with my story, so we only went over like a 10,000 foot view, believe it or not, of the step system. To learn all about the step system, to download the entire system for free, you can go to nickprefontaine.com/step. And that's going to teach you all about support, trust, energy, and persistence. And especially if you're stuck, what I mentioned earlier, if you're stuck or you just had something happen, you don't know what to do. Um, this is a great first step, because once you take your first step, there will always be a next step, and you just have to follow it.
All of that will be in the description, of course. My first closing question for you is, what is your number one health tip? So that could be mindset, physical, emotional, spiritual, diet, anything. Just the one piece of advice that you would like everyone to know.
Sure, and I find myself, Jessica, saying this more and more. if you don't have a routine of taking care of your energy. So taking care of your energy has evolved for me. And what that means now is I get something called a twina. Um, it's twina. It's you can go look it up if anyone's interested. TUI space NA, I believe it is. It's a form of body work. Chinese that if you look it up, you'll learn all about it. But I get that monthly. So I get that once every 5 weeks to help keep my energy in tune, keep it strong, so I'm able to impact the most amount of people. Along with that, I get myofascial release or craniosacral therapy, same timeline, once every 5 weeks to help keep my energy high. And so I'm able to impact the most amount of people. But if you don't, health wise, if you don't have a kind of a rhythm of doing this, and like just like I do it once every 5 weeks, but you have to have a um start getting that. So that one thing, it doesn't matter what else you're doing with your health. I know everyone's striving, everyone's getting better, but doing that one thing, either one of those, if you're not doing it, is really going to impact your health in a positive way.
You said Twina, Tuina?
Yep, TUI space NA, I believe it is. Yep.
Okay, it sounds similar to Reiki.
The thing about Reiki, when I was in a coma, I learned this later, but when I was in a coma, my parents had someone come and perform Reiki on me. So,
Your parents sound incredible.
oh, thank you. I get that a lot. So, yes, they are. They are.
Yeah, I mean, how did they respond to all of this? They're probably not even shocked at your recovery.
No, because just like me, is just something that happened when I was younger. I really look at it right now. I don't even think it's a big deal. I mean, before I started this, all this work with my speaking and with Trisha and with launching Common Goal and everything, I it was always just something. Yeah, okay, it's something that happened when I was younger, and I just dealt with it, and I just had to deal with it. And then after I can tell you something though, after I had to overcome the voice issue, I was like, after I got to the end of that, I was like, all right, I have something here. Like there's something to this. I've had to like I've overcame two health things, and I need to share this. So that was really before uh, Trisha helped me birth the step system, and I've been able to share that now with the world. But I was like, all right, I have something here.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. Okay, my last question for you, Nick. You get to choose a number 1 through 100, and it will correlate to a personal question.
So I'm gonna go with 88 because that was the year I was born.
I like it.
I don't know, it just popped up.
Perfect. What is a global issue you feel needs more attention?
So I think in this day and age, I think we are in a very polarizing time, and it's yeah, very polarizing time, and there's like there's a lot of hate out there. Like, oh, I don't believe what that person believes, therefore I hate them or something. But that's I mean, I'm just trying to by sharing the step system. I'm trying to bring everyone together. Because that's I think where we're able to succeed is when we all come together. So just because you believe something different from another person doesn't mean they're a bad person. Um, in fact, you probably have more in common with them than you have that's different from them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really like that perspective. And I thought of another question I just have to ask. Have you been snowboarding since?
Yeah, yes, I have. I think it was all right, so I think it was right after my accident. I don't know how I did it, but I convinced my parents that it was a good idea. The season after my accident, it was a good idea for me to work at the mountain, because when I got in my accident, out the hill, I'm not gonna say mountain. That's inflating it. The hill in my town, I was a snowboard instructor, so I convinced them after my accident that, oh yeah, it's a good idea. I'm not gonna snowboard. I'm just gonna hang around the mountain and like help everyone. And I know I can't snowboard. Well, when I was there, temptation proved too much. All my friends were around too, so they were all instructed to not let me, like, I couldn't snowboard. They thought like, okay, he can't do it. So when they were in the lodge at one time, I grabbed one of their snowboards and took it and did a few runs. Then once they could see that I could snowboard still, they're like, "Oh, Nick's back." So I was doing that, and the mountain said to me, well, or the hill said to me, I keep saying mountain. The hill said to me that they can't, they know I'm snowboarding, and it's one of the conditions of working there again that I can't do that. So unless I stop, they would have to let me go. Well, they let me go. This is probably longer, more than you bargained for, but they let me go. Then I didn't tell my parents. I just kept showing up to the mountain in my work uniform, my work coat, and I just kept snowboarding. Well, my mom found out one day. I forget when it was, but she found out, and I came home one day and she was bawling. She was crying, and I was like, "Oh, I just my like heart melted." I'm like, I can't do that to my parents after everything I put them through. So that was the last time I snowboarded.
Wow. You are brave. See, I was asking because I would think most people would not want to go near a hill or a mountain again after that.
Well, I've seen this behavior come up again. I think it's like, so the, if I can, all right, so Kevin Pierce, he was a professional snowboarder. He had a traumatic brain injury. And then everything that was, I saw a documentary in, I don't know, 2013 or 14, 15, somewhere around there, called Crash Reel. Um, anyone can check it out. It's awesome. It brought back so many emotions and memories for me, because it like took you into his hospital room, and the hospital room was like there were posters all over the wall and everything. It just like brought me right back to mind. Well, one of the things after he recovered, he was a little older than me when he got in his accident, and he was a professional snowboarder, so a little more advanced than me. But he was just like, no, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna snowboard again. So against everyone, doctors, orders, family, everything, he just kept snowboarding. And the decision making process with that isn't really isn't
Rational.
yeah, it wasn't really there. He had a few injuries, like a few head injuries after that, like snowboarding him, because I was told that if you snowboard and have just an injury of like an eighth or a tenth of what you had, it could set you right back. Um, and so he had all these little things after he was snowboarding again. And I just saw him, and I saw it in a different light, because I was like, that's exactly how I was. Because when I was going through it, no one could tell me that it was wrong. Because that's what I was doing. But
Mhm.
once I saw it mirrored to another person doing it, I was like, I was like, that's, yeah, it touched me, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah, you could relate. You had tunnel vision.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. Oh, Nick, you are amazing. And not just because of like your healing and your recovery story, but the fact that you listened to the voice in your head, which I believe all of us have to some degree. It's just a matter if we can hear it and we listen to it, and then if we follow it. So you did all of that. And because of that, you are living your purpose and you're getting to share this amazing story to inspire so many people. And I just thank you so much for coming on and sharing it with my listeners. It's so great to have you here, and thank you.
This has been a lot of fun. Jessica, thanks for having me.